When Orval retired in 1993, he moved back to Hot Springs where he'd grown up and got involved right away as a volunteer with the Historical Society. And he was a wonderful, on-the-ground volunteer helping people with whatever they needed. He also was a very strong leader. He was president 3 times and board member just about forever, wasn't he, Clyde? Mm-hmm. And in the last few years, he's been our board member emeritus. His leadership has been wonderful. And of course, during those years, he also was researching his wonderful books and articles about Hot Springs.
I give him, usually in my public speaking, almost all the credit, because he became early on, like in 2007. We opened in 2008. But not being from here and not really journalistically trusting all of the legend that you could hear around Hot Springs, we had to have a way to filter the legend from the truth. And he became that guy.
He was a quiet man, and he went about his business here very quietly. If someone had a question, he would go out of his way to explain it to them, take as much time as needed. And he also gave many programs in the community.
Oh, that was a great service he did.
Hundreds, probably. We don't count them, but he was very gentlemanly, very, I can't say enough good things about him.
Orval had a famous saying to me, he always said this to me, if I was focusing on something a little too close to, more in local, he said, don't forget about the big picture. This was a national story. It's not just a little Hot Springs newspaper story, This was New York and Chicago and L.A.
When Leo McLaughlin, our very colorful, crooked mayor, ran the city and the county, and every position was political, even firemen. And his dad, Orval would say, would come home with these incredible tales of all the behind-the-scenes shenanigans going on in the city and county government. And then his dad worked at night sometimes as a security guard at the Southern Club and the Belvedere Club, and he had stories about that aspect of Hot Springs history that he'd bring home. And Orval grew up on these stories that were so fascinating, and that got him interested in it. He said once that I was born when Leo McLaughlin was mayor, and I graduated from high school when Leo McLaughlin was mayor, and I thought it was a permanent position. So he didn't just get interested by reading something in a book. It was a part of growing up. He met Oni Madden when Oni Madden delivered baseball equipment to the boys club. He was giving them stuff because theirs was worn out in '45, and Orval helped Oni Madden deliver all these new supplies. And I love that image because here's this gangster, famous mobster he's going to be writing about someday, and there's this famous gangster and future FBI agent, all just getting the baseball equipment out, and neither of them knowing how their lives or reputations will intersect in the future. He just intersected with so much of our history just by living his life. Just amazing.
In 2007, I called the Historical Society because that's when I had the idea for this, for the Gangster Museum of America. There wasn't one anywhere else. The one in Vegas came years later. And so I called over there, and they put me in touch with Orval. And he told me, that might be a great idea. He said, but, write a letter. I think I might have sent an email to whoever was in charge of the Historical Society. So I'd already started arranging and building and trying to formulate the story when I got an email that said the Historical Society didn't want to have anything to do with it. And I thought, man, that's tough. And so I called and talked to Orval, and he said, well, we're still working on it. I know they knew that wasn't going to stop me. I was going to tell this story somehow or other, with or without them. And I had a lot of information from the other historical societies around the country. And Orval came over and said, you know, if you need me, let me know. And boom, he got more calls from me than he probably ever expected. But he was just that kind of guy, you know. He was glad. He wanted it to be right.
I think we were talking about that earlier, Clyde. If he says something in one of his books or articles, you can take it to the bank because he's documented it. That was very, very important. That was his first principle. If I can't document it and prove it, I'm not going to say it happened or say it was true. And if something was only a rumor, he'd say, a rumor may say, but this is what we can prove. Which is the main thing that makes his work so important, because it's so reliable.
Exactly. And no one else hears his output, but we still sell today, and no one else has come anywhere near matching this, or probably ever will. We've talked about all the adjectives we've thrown out there about him, and they're all true. I know it sounds like, who could be this good, but he really was. And it's just hard to sum him up in a phrase.
Yeah, and if he was your friend, you were blessed, because he was a wonderful friend. And he was such an inspiration and an example of how to preserve history, how to enjoy history, and how to recognize its importance. And it's fun. He had fun.
And a patient person. Very
patient. He
very
was.
patient.
He was an extraordinary human being.
There you go.